listening to the Blue Jay Breakdown.
Welcome to the Blue Jay Breakdown. Anna Bellinghausen and Drake Keeler alongside with you. We had a break last week, of course, with the holidays, so we are back to recap the past 2 weeks of Creighton women's basketball. Drake, let's chat first on that Nebraska win in Lincoln. So they get to avenge that loss from 2021, 79-74 final there. What stood out to you, Drake?
Yeah, well, I didn't get to be there live for that one, unfortunately. I was covering Nebraska soccer, but I did rewatch it, and kind of like Coach Flannery said post-game, it was a really good game. It was just a really good basketball game. I think that was my main takeaway, and it's one that Creighton won, and they kind of held the lead throughout. Nebraska made its pushes. They really challenged them. But you know, it was a good win. The offense was clicking. It was really impressive. Just felt like they had Nebraska lost on some possessions, and it's what you want to see. Obviously, you know, they weren't going to probably win by 20 like they did last year, but you know, this is more what you can expect and more what you want to see in this type of game. You know, they're going up against a good opponent. They won. It was a good bounce back from the game that they had lost to Green Bay.
Yeah, we'll touch on that in just a moment. Want to bring up one point, though. Creighton also found ways to score without the three-pointer falling. In the second half, they were just 1 for 9 from three, kind of uncharacteristic performance from the three-point line in the second half, but those days are going to happen, and we'll touch on it again soon, but that's something that happened versus Green Bay. Drake, what did you like about their ability to find different ways, maybe getting Emma Ronsick involved or just finding different outlets?
Yeah, I think that's been a pretty big, I guess, storyline early this season. You know, Creighton is obviously a three-point shooting team, but you know, the shot makers, like they can score from pretty much anywhere. You look at Lauren Jensen, Morgan Molly, Emma Ronsick, of course. You know, they're not one dimensional. They're not just like primarily shooters, even though that kind of ends up being what the team does. So that's been really impressive to see them just be able to get offense in different ways when those shots aren't falling from deep.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's touch on that Green Bay loss as well, because it was probably the most glaring thing out of those 2 weeks, and seeing a top 25 team lose to Green Bay, which is a legit team and has carried on to do great things as well. So what stood out to you about the Green Bay loss at home for Creighton?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was kind of unexpected. We knew Green Bay was a solid team. I think 29-6 last year or something like that. They're really good. But not one you would have expected to come into Creighton's arena and pull out a win. They played really well. They held Morgan Molly to 5 points. She couldn't get comfortable with the basketball. They just were really aggressive defensively, offensively, just really patient. Creighton didn't really play poorly defensively for most of that game. But Green Bay was just, you know, taking their time, finding what they could and making shots. So that was really big. And, you know, they've proven to just be a good team, maybe better than people expected. They had a single-digit loss to Maryland in the Thanksgiving tournament they played in, and they went on to beat a ranked Washington State team, a legitimate Washington State team. So they're getting tournament projections right now. So I think you can be fine. Obviously, you know, a game you still would have liked to win, especially considering how they've done since. But, you know, it's a loss you can take, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it might not affect the resume as much as Creighton might think it will moving forward too, especially if they keep getting those quad 1, quad 2 wins. But yeah, when you shoot 35% from the floor, 23% from three, you're not going to win too many ball games if you're Creighton. Still, though, finding ways to take away positives from that game and knowing, hey, we might not have a good shooting night, but we still need to find ways to win. And I think that's what they did at Nebraska. Again, bouncing back, I think, was huge. Let's talk about that Cancun challenge. So they got a little vacation over the Thanksgiving break, and Creighton came away very happy. They first defeated Georgia Tech in a low-scoring affair, 57-46. And then they dominated a tough Big Ten opponent in Michigan State, 83-69. Drake, what did you like from the Cancun Challenge?
Yeah, I mean, they won both games. Georgia Tech, both teams with solid records so far. I don't know how good Georgia Tech is, but Michigan State has looked really good as well to start the season. Those are two quality wins, and going through this stretch where you get Nebraska and Georgia Tech and Michigan State and winning all 3 of those games is really impressive. So, the first game, it was kind of a low scoring one, another one where they didn't shoot especially well, but they really held them down defensively. And that was a part of the next game too, where Michigan State, I believe, I think shot sub 40% as a team. And they've been lighting it up offensively against a weaker schedule, but still, that's, they have players who can score. So that was really impressive. And of course, as we're about to get to, Lauren Jensen was stellar in that second game. Morgan Molly also had 26 points in the win over Michigan State. Jensen had 32, I believe, 30 plus. So that was really great.
Yeah, Drake, it's tough to know which Creighton Blue Jay is going to have the hot hand any given night, so you kind of just have to prepare for everybody. But yes, Lauren Jensen, Big East Player of the Week. What's been impressive about her, especially throughout Cancun?
Yeah, she scored 16 points in the first game. That was on 6 for 20 shooting, so not, the best performance, but scored in a game where shots weren't falling super often for either team. But she was really just outstanding in that Michigan State win. Great as a passer as well, made some defensive plays going for loose balls. And in the third quarter, she kind of just took over. I think she had maybe 14 points in that period alone. And it was kind of a bit of everything. She was hitting her threes, lots of just cutting to the rim, passers finding her. And just the shot making. I mean, she had a few plays where she'll just get a little space, go up for the contestant jumper and hit it. So it's going to be hard to stop her. And Morgan Molly was also hitting those type of shots. So those two were really impressive, Jensen especially. And there's a reason she got Big East Player of the Week.
Absolutely. Yeah. When those players are rolling, it's going to be very tough to beat Creighton down the stretch. Let's look ahead to their upcoming schedules. They face UNI at home and then Wyoming on the road before opening up Big East play at Marquette. These are non-con teams that Creighton really can't overlook. I mean, you saw that with Green Bay too, a non-con team coming into Creighton's home and beating them. So I think they can't take any team lightly. What are you looking out for these matchups?
Yeah, I think you kind of said it. That's how they've assembled their non-conference schedule. They don't have like the big heavy hitters necessarily, kind of like they did last year to some extent. And they still got some, tournament level teams, but they're all quality opponents for non-con. There's no off night really. And Northern Iowa is a weird team. I think they're like 1-4, 1-5 right now. Their one win was over Green Bay, funny enough. And they've lost to some, power conference teams that have also had pretty good starts to their seasons. So, they can play. Don't let that record fool you, I guess. And that's kind of the story through December is, if they go through December, or they have some Big East games in there too. But if they go through the rest of their non-con schedule, definitely can go through it undefeated. But, they've got to just stay consistent, keep the defense up, things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to watch it.
Well, Drake, lots to look forward to. We'll catch you guys next week on the Blue Jay Breakdown. Thanks so much for joining us.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.